It just keeps getting better and better. Like our next speaker is sunshine in human form. My kids call her Crystal with the love heart glasses, which I absolutely love. And it was so funny because we love handing out love heart glasses at our She Evolves retreats. It's about, practicing self-love and making sure that we're looking at ourselves with rose-colored glasses. And who knew this was the OG? And so we're all just like basically your fangirls, by default, which is so epic. But Crystal Adair-Benning is a word-slinging, globe-trotting CEO of Word Magic Copywriting Inc. And she's not just a multiple New York Times best-selling ghostwriter. She's a literary alchemist, turning prosaic paragraphs into gold. Known for her quantum copy revolution, Crystal champions rebels and misfits with a pen and a talent for leaving Easter eggs between the lines, ensuring every story packs a punch. Join her on a world tour of storytelling where each sentence is more thrilling than her last adventure. Warning, side effects may include inspiration, wanderlust, and uncontrollable giggles. The coolest thing about Crystal is that she helped one of our She Evolves community publish their first book, and she has inspired, I think we're up to 5 or 6 authors now in the community. And this is particularly exciting for me because I share a lot of values with Crystal. One being, I believe every person has a book in them. 2 being, I believe every woman has a story worth sharing. And 3 being, I think we have to really alchemize and scrape through the layers of programming and people pleasing and just discomfort that we really need to kind of mine to get to the good stuff. And what I love about Crystal is that she helps people do that. And she does it not only with wisdom, but she does it with wit. And she takes people on a pretty amazing journey that leaves them feeling really amazing about themselves, which is no ill feat. So thank you for being here, Crystal, and over to you.
My pleasure. My goodness, what an intro. A little wordy, just like me sometimes. So here we go. I'm going to talk to you today all about how to stop playing small and write your book already. Because I think that there's so many of us that have been talking about writing a book, but we never actually get around to it. So the number one thing that I see that happens is like people don't actually know anything about book writing. And yet this beautiful statistic exists. 81% of us actually want to write a book. 15% of us actually start writing a book. Only about 6% actually make it halfway, and 3% finish writing a book, which to me is just like, makes my head explode. What I find the reason we don't finish writing our books is often because we get in our own way. And I'm going to talk about that today. So the publishing game has changed dramatically. It used to be that we would, have some sort of influence on the world. We would be doing big things. Publishers would come to us. They would offer us big advances. We would sign a check. Off we go, right? Like that used to be how it exists. Now the game has completely changed with vanity publishers, which are like niche publishers, self-publishing, and traditional publishers. But the way that we're given the money has totally changed the game. So now we look at advances from publishers typically as monetization, not to write the book, but to actually market your book to make it a bestseller, and you're expected to pay that back, which is starting to change the way we look at publishing as a whole. A lot of people are turning away from traditional publishers in favor of vanity and self-publishing, which means we, like never before, are seeing more books come out into the market and more access to wisdom and IP than ever before, which I think is a great, great, great thing. Okay, so we also, your book, whether you like it or not, is going to be fed to AI, and it's going to become a resource for others. The way that AI typically works is AI is crowdsourced information. So anytime we write anything and we put it out into the marketplace, we're actually allowing other people to resource our wisdom to help expand global consciousness and global wisdom. Now, a lot of people find that idea particularly scary, but for me, if you're going to write a book, the goal for most of us is to expand our global consciousness, to expand our wisdom, to put our ideas out there and really shape the way that people are going to move and experience the world and continue to grow in the future. So I think this is actually a really cool thing. We actually write for pie. And I love this. I love that we write for pie. We write to persuade, to inform, or entertain. Those are the three reasons that we typically write. All of them are very, very valid. And what I encourage all authors to do when you sit down to write your book is, what am I trying to persuade somebody to do, think, be, create differently? What am I trying to inform them about? So what am I trying to give them wisdom or knowledge around? And how am I trying to entertain them? And the entertainment part is the piece I love the most, because that's truly where we do our storytelling. So I love the entertainment portion. Now, the biggest obstacle we talked about to writing a book is actually yourself, right? So many of us get caught in our head. We have a fear of success. We have a fear of failure. We have worthiness issues. We have self-love issues. We have all these issues that happen. We might have small T trauma in our lives. We might have big T trauma in our lives. All of those become obstacles to you writing their book, which is why people like me as a ghostwriter or as a book coach even exist, because my job is about helping you write your book, but it's also about helping you overcome you. So I call it catharsis on a page. No matter what you write, whether it's a business book, a personal memoir, something for your kids, a children's book, even whatever you're writing, the real obstacle is you. And we get to do a deep dive into you to heal the trauma, to heal the hurt, to overcome the self-loathing, to figure out your worthiness issues. And really, that's the goal of writing a book. And the reason I believe that only 15% of us start, 6% of us make it halfway, and 3% finish is because that process is scarier than the concept of a book. I actually think the healing work that you're going to do when you say, I want to write a book, is scarier than the process itself. So my job is to break it down and work together with you to help you heal it, and also to write it along the way. Now, most of us get stuck on the how of writing a book when we should really focus on the why. So I'm going to show you some of the how today, because there's basically 3 steps. I'm going to show you the how. So the how is not the obstacle anymore. So if that is your obstacle in the way, the one that logically you keep saying is the problem, today we're going to bust that open. I'm going to show you the how. I'm going to show you how to write a book. And then that's no longer the excuse, which means that you have to focus on your why. So if you're playing small, your why is getting in the way, and it's time to examine that. So let's talk about the how. So strategize to optimize. The best books start with a plan. Now, there's 3 things that I think all books require. They require style, which is all about the style and genre, whether you are somebody who loves a good solid mic drop moment, whether you're more soft and subtle, whether you like to tell deep, intricate stories filled with, sight, taste, sound, all of that, or whether you're somebody who just likes to get straight to the point. Are you somebody who likes exercises and workbooks? Are you somebody who's going to engage AI in your writing? That's all style. Substance is the meat and potatoes of what we're going to share. It's all of the stories that best showcase the lessons that you want to teach somebody. It's also the outcomes of things. So when I think of this, I think of experiential content. Are we including a link to a meditation? Are we including a workbook? Is there a question you want to ask of your reader? Is there something you want them to do with the meat of the storytelling? And then the third piece is the strategy. And this is where we get absolutely messy in order to get clear. But strategy is where we get to have a lot of fun in figuring out, who's this book's for? What the heck are we doing with it anyway? Right? And sometimes we write books just for ourselves. But most of the time, if you're going through the process and effort of writing a book, you're writing a book for other people. So it's important to not just write the book, it's important to get it out into the hands of those other people you want to help. Right? Most of us don't just write a book and then be like, oh yeah, cool, I'm going to tuck that on my shelf, send a copy to my mom, and I'm done here. We do it in the goal that we're going to help more and more people. So what's your book style? I'm doing this super fast for you guys today, but essentially there's 3 kind of ways that I think of books, right? So we have nonfiction books, and I call these yellow brick road books, and they're really about your IP and your story. This is your wisdom and your storytelling. Business books, which is primarily what I read a lot of. I read a lot of mindset and business books for other people. I work with a lot of coaches and authors who are creating mindset and business type books that include their story. That's the yellow brick road for me. Fiction works are creative works. So, Fourth Wing, J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter books, fiction, made up stories that have a lesson tied into them. So one thing we misnomer about creative works is that they're not tied to reality. They're always tied to reality. They're just different land, same lesson, right? Humans have the same lesson. Good times. And then we have our niche books. So these could be kids' books, poetry books, young adult fictions, highly specialized topics. This might be a workbook, a journal. Like there's all kinds of stuff that fits into niche books. But if it's not really nonfiction or fiction, oftentimes it's a niche. And your book style doesn't matter, except to say that there's different pieces you need to learn along the way in terms of how you're going to put it together. But essentially the framework's all the same. So let's talk about the substance, which is really how we put together a framework for our book. Now, steal this, screenshot it, use it everywhere, use it for yourself. If you're thinking about a book, if you have it stuck in your brain right now that you want to write a book, steal this framework and use it. This is mind-blowing to every author I've ever worked with. It breaks down your book very, very succinctly in a way that you can follow, your book coach can follow, your editor can follow, your best friend could follow to go along with the book story. So the way that we do this is I like to do it in an Excel spreadsheet. I am old school, guys. I am Google Docs all the way right now. I want you to make a Google spreadsheet and you're just basically going to put chapter, theme, or concept on the left, content, story, research or unknowns, and experiential content. And you're going to fill it in exactly like this. Across the left, chapter, theme, or concept is why does the story, what does the chapter matter? So is it an introduction? Is it chapter 1? Does it set up the context for the book? Does it give the first activity in the book? Does it lead to the first lesson, right? That's a theme or a concept. The content is the essential plot point that I want to actually cover in the book. So for example, I might want to teach them a lesson on business mindset. I might want to teach them a lesson on whatever. We're just giving them an essential plot point to kind of draw into, okay? So that's the main piece of that. And then we want to move into stories. Now, your storytelling is where you're going to reinforce this. So if I'm telling a story on mindset, for example, maybe I'm telling the story of when I got disease and how I used mindset to help heal my disease. Maybe it's told through a story of being in a career that I liked, that was in my zone of excellence, so to speak, and I shifted careers into my zone of genius. That might be a mindset shift. Does that, that should line up. And then we've got your research and unknowns. And these are items where you might need a statistic or information to back up what you're saying. So for example, at the beginning, I talked about the 81%, the 15%, the 6%, the 3%. If I didn't know that statistic, I would just write myself a little note that says need statistics on how many people write books, how many finish them, blah, 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 so that I could know before I even start writing what I need to go figure out. Okay. And then experiential content, outbound links, worksheets, meditations, recaps, recommendations, additional links to other books you recommend or additional readings, things like that. Anything that you want to include that's not quite writing, but it ties to the writing that you're doing. Maybe it's a course you're offering. That's where experiential content does. Now, if you fill this out, and it should take at bare minimum, I tell people to look at this at bare minimum 3 to 5 hours and go through it and refine it and refine it and refine it. And then you want to take it to somebody who would be your ideal audience. For most of us, that is not our mother or father. This is somebody else in your world who's very connected. You want to take it to somebody else, show it to them and just say, does this make sense? Does the order make sense? They have to be your dream reader. If they are, and they give it the okay, you're good to start writing. And you just use it to literally checkpoint yourself as you're writing. All right. What's your best-selling book strategy? I don't have a lot of time, literally down to the wire here. So I have 9 strategies on how to become a bestseller, because strategy for what to do with your book, whether you decide to make it a bestseller or whether you just want to sell it to like 24 people in your church group, does not matter. The strategy to get there just changes based on what you want to do with the desired outcome. However, these 9 are the steps that I typically take with every single client. It has to be a marketable idea. It has to be something people want. You have to have a loyal audience built. So this means if you haven't been working on your email funnel or you don't have a decent social media following, you might want to work on that. It's got to have great writing. Yes, sorry, it needs to go to an editor. You do need that. You need to hire professional help. And that doesn't necessarily mean like a ghostwriter or a book coach. That could be an editor, but your book should go through professional help along the way. You need to build a platform. So if you're doing content that's going to lead to courses or classes or standing on stages, build a platform for it. Figure out some PR and marketing around your book. How do I get on podcasts? How do I get in the newspaper? All of that stuff. You want global distribution, which in today's day and age, that means Amazon, guys. They are the #1 bookseller in the world globally. You want to maintain momentum. So once you launch your book, you don't just talk about it once. You kind of hit people over the head with it. On average now, we're seeing that we have to see and hear and interact with something over 50 times for a book in order for people to sometimes pick it up. So you can have them on an email list and you might email them 50 times before they're finally like, oh, right, that book. I didn't even notice it. They won't know you've emailed them 50 times, but they need to connect with it multiple times. And you want to leverage any reviews you get, which is all part of the puzzle. That's it. It's really short, but in order to stop playing small, my goal is everybody has a story. It's time to start telling more stories. And it's time for women, especially, to start telling more business stories and personal stories, because men have a lock on the market. And I don't know about you, but I want to hear more women in business and empowerment stories in the world and the marketplace. So thanks for tuning in.
I know every single person on this call is like, I want more. The best thing is Crystal actually hosts book writing retreats around the world. Please follow her online. You will see that she's very generous with her wisdom, just like in this like literal power session that she's just shared with us now. She will often be kind of drip feeding really epic kind of little notes of wisdom out there.